Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an academic paper that asks a pretty radical question. What if we could use technology to redesign democracy from the ground up? It explores this bold new system, but also some of the hidden dangers lurking inside. And it offers a rescue mission from a very surprising place.
I mean, just think about that for a second. For the issues you really know and care about, like your local schools, you get to vote directly. But for something super complex, say international trade policy, what if you could just loan your vote to an expert you trust? That's the big idea we're digging into today, and honestly, it might completely change the way you think about voting.
But okay, before we jump into this new idea, we've got to understand the problem it's trying to solve. Like, what's actually broken with the democracy we have now? Well, it turns out we've been stuck in this fundamental dilemma for centuries.
Yeah, we've always been caught between these two extremes. On one hand, you've got direct democracy. It gives you total control, which sounds great, but it's just not practical. Can you imagine the amount of homework you'd have to do to intelligently vote on hundreds of bills a year? So what do? We use representative democracy. It's way more efficient, sure, but it creates this distance, this feeling that I think a lot of us have, That sense of being disconnected from the people who are actually making the decisions for us. So, if both systems have these huge built-in flaws, what's the alternative? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The source material we're looking at points to a fascinating, tech-driven solution that tries to give us the best of both worlds. It's called liquid democracy, and that word, liquid, is key because it's all about being flexible and adaptable. Think about it like water. Your political power can flow wherever it's needed most, instead of being locked into a rigid box for 4 years at a time. You're not stuck with just one person representing you on every single issue.
So how would this actually work in practice? Well, it boils down to this really powerful three-step process. First, and most importantly, you can always vote directly. Your voice is always yours. Second, if you don't feel like an expert on something, you can delegate your vote. You could give it to a scientist, a community leader, whoever you trust. And third, and this is absolutely crucial, you can reclaim your vote instantly. The second your delegate does something you don't agree with, poof, you take your power right back.
Okay, so this sounds like a perfect solution, right? A more flexible, more responsive, more empowering kind of democracy. But like with any powerful new technology, there's always a flip side. The very things that make liquid democracy so appealing also happen to open the door to some really serious ethical dangers.
And we're not just talking about a few minor hiccups here. The research we're looking at today identifies 4 major fault lines that could cause this entire system to basically crumble under its own weight, turning a digital dream into a whole new kind of danger.
First up, there's this weird danger to our own political identity as our votes get passed around. But even more sneaky is the risk of hidden influence. Just imagine a giant corporation quietly funding a whole network of so-called expert delegates, who then, surprise, surprise, start voting for policies that just happen to benefit that corporation. It's like a new, subtle, and powerful form of backroom lobbying.
Second, and this is a big one, is the problem of truth. I mean, we're already swimming in misinformation as it is. Now picture a system where votes can be delegated and reclaimed in an instant. A single viral piece of fake news could completely swing a major policy decision before the truth even has a chance to put its boots on. How do you make sure decisions are based on facts, not just viral fiction? And this leads us to what might be the biggest threat of all, the rise of these so-called supervoters. These are delegates who get so trusted that they end up holding thousands, maybe even millions of votes. It's kind of like creating a brand new class of political influencers, but without any of the checks and balances of traditional elections. All their power comes from trust, and as we all know, that trust can be manipulated. And finally, there's the danger of exclusion. This is a problem we see with so many new technologies. They promise to connect everyone, but they often just end up reinforcing the divides that are already there. A system built entirely on software risks leaving behind anyone without reliable internet or the digital skills to navigate it. It could end up amplifying the voices of the privileged while silencing everyone else.
So, with all these massive dangers, is liquid democracy just a lost cause? Well, the paper argues, no, not at all. It suggests we can save the idea, but we have to build it on a much stronger ethical foundation. And it finds that foundation in the work of a philosopher named Habermas, who basically spent his entire life thinking about one question: how can we have healthy, rational public debates in a super complex society?
And this right here is the heart of his idea: discourse ethics. Put simply, it means a law is only just if every single person it affects has had a real chance to talk it through and agree to it. Not because they were forced or tricked, but because they were genuinely convinced by the best arguments. It's about building understanding, not just winning a vote.
And this is where it all clicks into place. What's so amazing about this framework is how neatly it solves the dangers we just talked about. Take the information crisis. Habermas's principle says all information has to be constantly tested and debated out in the open. To fight back against those super voters, you need radical transparency, so everyone can see who is influencing who and why. And to solve digital exclusion, the whole system has to be built on universal principles of fairness and access for everyone, not just the people who are good with tech.
So what does all this mean for the future of our digital lives? How do we take these big philosophical ideas and actually use them to build better, more trustworthy online spaces for all of us? And that brings us to the real core takeaway of this entire paper. You can't just code your way to a better democracy. Technology isn't a magic wand. The goal can't just be to make voting more efficient, like some kind of political vending machine where you just push a button and get a law. The real challenge, the real goal, is to use technology to build a digital public square where we can actually understand each other, even when we disagree. And that means building systems with clear, ethical rules that put fair and inclusive communication first.
And that leaves us with a choice that all of us are making every single day online. Are we building our digital public square for argument, or are we building it for understanding? Are we designing spaces that reward outrage or spaces that foster reason? The answer isn't just going to decide the future of some niche idea like liquid democracy. It's going to define the future of democracy itself.